Alright, it's time for individual VOD review number 2, Electric Boogaloo, and this time it will be Mr. FLem on the Hanzo on King's Row. I don't know if this is going to be a full map review because I don't know how much Hanzo he actually plays here, and I want to see which hero he plays throughout this video, so that will determine this length. So let's get into it. Okay, Sonic came out a little bit late, but I'm nitpicking. Okay, so notice how at the very beginning here, so you make the rotation up to the high ground, but it doesn't really look like there's any thing that you actually observe here that triggers the rotation, if that makes sense. Like, nothing about this comp indicates to you necessarily to rotate to high or stay here. So by making this rotation after the fight has already began, you waste that little bit of time in like one of the most crucial moments. Okay, and there when you spam your storm arrow, so what it looks like to me is what you're doing is you press E and you just hold left click. So that's a pretty bad habit among a lot of Hanzos. So what I would try to do is when you pop the storm arrow, try to click each storm arrow, just so that you can really, so that you're not just like spamming them, you can actually aim them at something, at a target each time. You want to aim each one as if you're firing 6 arrows, not just, you know, spamming. Okay, going for the hacked Rhine. That's good. Also, when you're trying to wall climb, I would always try to like hold mouse 1 or whatever your primary fire button is right as you're about to climb the wall, just so you can get that extra little bit of charge as you come off this wall for your next arrow. Okay, your target priority is like very wild, so not here. No, that's too far. Okay, so they're pushing up. So you're aiming for you shot one shot at Zarya. Now you're going for Ryan. Now you're going for Zarya with that arrow, and then back to Ryan, and then back to like the general blob of things, and then you can go for an Ana shot from back. So yeah, try to focus on one target and try to only go after barriers when there's the only thing to shoot at.
I will not be defeated so easily.
Objective lost. Stop the payload.
Alright, this is decent positioning. Your positioning's pretty good. Playing on the high ground. Got good ranges. Okay, so here where you can't really like see everything, like you know where their general direction is, but feel free to like lob a Sonic into that general area so you can see their exact movements, so that when you're peeking it's more accurate. Okay, when the Lucio like peeked you a little bit, but he wasn't really going for you, you were playing very safe, like too safe. Just notice how just here you've charged the Dragon Strike, and we already have a grab and beat up. Okay, yeah, like as soon as you see them, you want to start firing. Like I know that was like what, like 0.7 seconds, but that's a lot of time. Okay, good focus on this Rhine. Okay, but you lost your Rhine, so you call for the retreat and you don't use your ultimate, which is good restraint. Yeah, like look how hard it was to aim those storm arrow shots. This is exactly what I was talking about. I'm not gonna hark on this too much. But like, here, we'll slow it down. Like, where's that one going? I don't like that one. Like, your aim is not that bad. Your aim is much better than that. If you were to actually aim the shots. No. Grab Dragon's combos, there's not much to say about that. That's a nice shot on that Lucio. Okay.
This is gonna make you feel better.
Okay. That's a nice try going for that predict. So at the beginning, like when fights are in the posture phase, it's totally viable. It's totally viable for you to use your storm arrow on Orion shield, I should say. So like when they're pushing up here, like right there, like just pop. You can pop a storm arrow and fire it into that shield. Because so over like a very brief period of okay, I should rephrase. I know earlier I just said you should try to only fire at Ryan Shield when it's the only thing to fire at, but there are some abilities that are like high burst damage to, or not high burst damage, but just high damage overall to shields, like Storm Arrow. Like it's gonna be very difficult for you to secure a kill with the Storm Arrow, like here on this area. Like there aren't many targets for that Storm Arrow to really cut down. So yeah, like into that Ryan shield, it's 3,800 380 damage. Nice. Now that I'm looking back at it, it does look like the Rhino overextended a little bit. Right, like, see, like when you focus the targets, like, all goes well. Okay, so I don't like that dragons because, okay, so if you're trying to get this, if you're trying to use this to peel for this against this Reinhardt, I'd want your position to more be like here, so that he can't just like oops, still in blue pen mode. I would like your positioning to more be like here, so that when you dragons him, he can't just walk forwards and avoid it. Rather, what you can do here, if you're going to be so far forward, is you can kind of go like this, and this will cut his team off from trying to get to him. Like this Lucio's fucked. So dragons this way. Try to get cut off dragons more than like this. That dragon's kind of aimed just like a straight up arrow. So here, as you're firing at these guys, you can look to strafe leftwards as you're shooting to slowly make your way back up to the high ground you were playing originally. Because against tanks and like a brick, it can be hard to secure damage just straight frontlining it. But I'm glad that you keep going back to this high ground. Yeah, you jumped down, but you did not need to. At least not yet. Like, you can jump down after the diva dives you. Like, it's gonna be very hard for her to kill you just on a straight dive. Like that shield sound is fine. Oops. And when the Zarya bubble comes up, unless she's like super low, which she was like about half, I would, as the bubble's going on, try to acquire a new target for an arrow, rather than that. Okay, so that was the Diva's mistake. That was my mistake. But you Dragon struck straight into a Diva who actually had defense matrix up. I actually turned off my defense matrix when I heard the voice line because I'm a terrible Diva. But yeah, do not do that. Like the Dragon placement is fine, but the actual like the thought process behind it, and also the fact that your Zarya has grab. Okay, that's a good focus on the Zarya, but your positioning is really off. Like if we look at this from third person. Oh wait, that was way too far. That's too far forward. Okay, so you're on the right side of the screen here. So, like right here, like this is a nice place because you have this kind of wall for cover, you have this pillar for cover, and you have general sightlines over this area, which is where the fight's going to be. I notice when this area comes to pressure you, you start kind of crossing. You just cross. So like by you like retreating this way, that doesn't really save you anything. Like that's not really what saves you. What saves you is the sound barrier. So if you didn't get that sound barrier, you would have died whether you're going this or you would have been in a fairly equal amount of danger going this way or staying here. And you might as well stay in the better position because this opens you up to more threats. And here you can at least dance around this cover against the Zarya. So your initial positioning is pretty good, but it tends to like decay as the fight kind of devolves. So try not to give your opponents too much like respect in the sense that don't let them force you out of your positions. Also, I'd like to see you use your sound. I talked about this at the what the hell is that? I talked about this at the beginning of the first fight, but try to use your sonic before you see the enemies rather than in reaction to the sight of the first one. Okay, that dragon is good. I like that. Because look how... I'll show you. Bum, 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 bum. Notice how the Ryan kind of is out of position in relation to the Diva. So here, the Dragon Strike placement is going like this. So that's right on top of these guys, so they're forced to retreat one of two ways. And if they retreat into this right side, they're going to get stuffed into this tiny little area against the Mei. And if they go... No, I don't want help. If they go this way, they'll probably be split from anyone who retreated this way. So I really like that, dragons. Give me my pen color back. Click. Okay. That's not your fault. Come on, Dan. Throwing.
See through the wolf's eyes.
Okay, so that sonic timing was better than last time. Alright, let's go back. Okay, so you're on the Zarya, then you switch to the Rhine because of that wall, which is fine. But then you like switch. Okay, you're spamming to that general area. Then you're kind of on this brig. Yeah. So again, target priority when the fights are kind of far back, like when the fights are very long range. Try to hone in on one person and try not to spam into tanks too much. Again, dragoning into defense matrixing diva, or not defense matrixing, a shit diva who has defense matrix available as an option, but who doesn't use it because of how bad he is at diva. Okay, I like that jump to move over the amp matrix. But there it seemed like you got overwhelmed by like how many targets there are. It's like, look how much red there is in front of you.
Which is unseen.
Okay, so that arrow's going for Brig. And then the next arrow is going for Ana? And then, okay, so here you're on Brig, so that's good. Okay, no, you're on Brig that whole time. But then that shot kind of switches to the diva, so that's what I'm talking about with target priority. Okay, and that's the end. What do you play here? Junkrat. Okay, I'll analyze Junkrat. Okay, I do not recommend jumping out high as a Junkrat, in case they have a sniper, which we do. Okay, also this was a bit of a mistake on Hanzo too, but I see it more on Junkrat, just like right now. The fact that you're not playing around cover with projectile heroes, because being that, you know, Junkrat and Hanzo, their shots have like a fairly long delay between them, you know, compared to Soldier. You can hide around walls and cover and peek out every time you're firing, especially into a Widow Pharah. Oh, that is so risky. Okay. Some of the easiest shots for Widow to hit are people that are in some kind of jump animation where they're falling, because you don't have control over your vertical velocity, right? You're just going down. So it's very easy to track your head comparatively if you were just 80-80 strafing. So that, I don't know. Yeah, don't do that. Flanking around here as Junkrat is also super dangerous into like a Roadhog and a Pharah Widow. Okay, so this position is... Okay, this position would... Yeah, this position is fine. You have your concussion mine to get out. You could have actually stayed there more. Just like leave your concussion mine there, and then when you get dove by someone, try to... hold the high ground, and then once you get dove, use your concussion mine to get out. Same thing on Hanzo. Don't give your enemies too much respect. Or rather, don't give your enemies more respect than they actually deserve. Now here you can try to spam over. Okay, use your concussion mines a lot when you boop yourself up, a lot like an Ashe. Like when an Ashe goes for like a jump shot dynamite or a jump shot damage boosted headshot, but Junkrat doesn't have that same one-shot potential. Not in this way. So I'd like to see you use your concussion mines less like that. Alright, flanking tire. Pretty decent. Alright, like this whole flank maneuver is pretty good. You get a lot of value here. Actually, you're already like 60%. So yeah, I think you in general, you should be a little more confident in your playstyle. The part where you have to be more passive is the whole idea of using cover more. Like, do corner peek shooting. And here you shouldn't be playing up here. Try to jump district up down. Yeah. Nice. So there, instead of just like frontlining the entire, you could try to make it. Okay. Oops. What's going on? Okay. So there you caught Widow on her reload. And what was Pharah doing when the tire came out? Pharah misses her first shot and Widow was reload. It's like, so a little bit lucky. So what I would have liked to see is if you had positioned it in a way so that maybe you try to crawl up the bookstore first, and then you kind of go like you crawl up the, oops, god, that is ugly. You crawl up the bookstore, and then you can kind of drop like that, rather than just going straight if you want to tire this place. I mean, it works, but just might as well play safer in the future with that tire. And you'll get this, like, the same, if not more, value. So there, when if you want to peek Widow, just like crouch here and then just spam, and like just you barely have to move, and then Widow, like as long as you're in a position where you're sure Widow can't hit you, like you should have your firing arc to give you the advantage. That was a nice concussion into that whatchamacallit, halt, and you almost found Pharah there too. But you do miss out on a lot of like ground damage by like tunneling on that far up. Okay. It seems that it's weird. Like sometimes you're too aggressive while other times you're too passive. So in general, so you have a very like high ground centric play style, which is fine. But that it's a lot better. Excuse me. It's a lot better Hanzo versus Goats than Junkrat versus a Pharah Widow. So just try to understand how high ground blends into enemy comps, and make sure you respect Roadhog a little more. Because it's like sometimes you seem to play too, like, okay, I think the issue is the confidence, because when you're playing too aggressive, it doesn't seem like you're being overconfident, it just seems that you're unaware of the threats themselves. So be more confident in your play style and your general play, but try to assess your threats better. A pull into a direct and a Widow. Hold up. Okay. Unlucky, dude. I was lined up straight with the Jason. And try when you're going for those one-shot combos, like at close range, which is where they're most optimal. Try to like notice how I don't know how to explain this, but I'll show you. Nope. You want to you want to mine like as soon as you even like fire the your primary fire. Like here, the mine should be coming out. Not after you by the time you react to the fact that you've hit it, it's too late. Yeah, like that. That's perfect. Ooh, you swap into the Widowmaker. Assume Aiden's not here to review your Widowmaker, so it's time for some lackluster Widow reviewing. I'm glad that you're at least scouting for that flanking Roadhog, but the way you were scouting was kind of odd because, you know, you're holding that angle as if it's like an enemy Widowmaker, but if that hog were to peek the angle and you were watching it, even if you get a headshot, you're still dead.
I am moving the payload.
Okay. I like this kind of slow picking the angles, but there you jumped out of cover without actually scoping them. And now, especially with their Widow knows your hit, you don't necessarily have to take this 1v1, but I believe you win it. Okay, I like this. Denying their enemy Widow's sidelines as you get other sources of value. So it's interesting, your Widow play, you seem to know, you play around cover very well, but less so with your Projectile heroes. So try to transfer these like Widow ideas of playing around cover to your Projectile heroes. Because, like, think about it this way, right? The reason why you're playing around cover as Widow is to avoid their Widow. So just because you're playing, you know, just because you're playing Junkrat and Hanzo and you're not always 1v1ing the Widow doesn't mean the Widow's threat isn't there. Okay, now you know their Widow's on the right side. And that she has walls. You want to play around that bottom more. Oh. You get there. Yeah, at the end there was very difficult, I think, for you to actually make a good decision that would have benefited you. Okay, so time to move on to final notes. So, we'll talk about... Alright, let's go with Hanzo first. Hanzo. Okay. So, Storm Arrow. Click. Click each time. No spamming into targets that are like actually moving. Spam shield, fine. But not against actual like targets that are moving and that you have to aim to hit. Okay? So, second is positioning. Mainly your rotations. you need to your initial positioning is quite strong, taking that high ground. But when you actually have to rotate, or not even when you have to rotate, just in general, your rotations are not good. Either you rotate when you don't have to, or you rotate to like a worse position for no reason. So don't give your enemies that much space as you are. As long as you have that like that short jump on cooldown, or off rather, as long as you have that short jump off cooldown and you can use it, you're pretty safe to play on high ground, especially just into like a solo diva. And lastly, or no, two more things. So alting, oops, alts, watch out for diva. And then the last thing is, I don't know how to. Actually, I can put this into positioning. So, play more aggro, I would say. Mainly when the fights are still in posture phase. Sometimes you back off, just like when you rotate. Like this is like a big general thing on positioning. You get the trigger, like something triggers you to play safe when you don't need to. And there was one more thing other than corner peeking. Or was it corner peeking? No, there was one more thing. Storm arrow positioning. Being aggressive, not playing too safe. Oh yeah, sonic arrow. Sonic. More. And earlier. Sonic before the fight begins, so you can learn where they're going, and so you can track their movements. And when the fights are in, like when we're in the middle of the engagement phase of the fight, you need to, it's like, it's fine to Sonic even if you know where they are, but you're not always distinctly looking at them, which ties into the idea of corner picking. Okay, so bye-bye. Junkrat. Junkrat. Junkrat had a lot of the same mistakes as Hanzo. Alright, corner picking. And in general, cover. Now, Junkrat's a lot easier to play cover with because you can actually arc over cover. So I'd like to see you manipulate that a little more. So shooting over cover, or on Junkrat and Hanzo, you know, peeking out of the cover and firing. And then going back into the cover and then firing again. High ground. High ground. Threats. Make sure you understand what can actually threaten you when you're taking a high ground on the enemy team. So sometimes it's actually worse to be on the high ground position because of how exposed it leaves you. I don't think you made many other mistakes on Junkrat. These are the main two things. Like, you had that one thing with that one-shot combo, but that was like a one-off thing. And maybe I'd like to see you use geometry more on rip tires. So rip, tire, geometry. Like, just try to climb up walls more so that you drop the tire down from above rather than just going straight into it, straight into the enemy team. Because that can be a lot more powerful. It's a lot harder to react. Instead of like just reacting to, oh, it's just gonna roll down the street. Like Kings Row streets is such an extremely powerful place for like these, like say Farah, right, can like play around all these buildings. So same with the rip tire, like just drive it up to the top of a building and drop it down on someone. Okay, Widow there wasn't much of, so I won't like write this whole thing. I'll just talk briefly. Widow, your cover, like when you play around cover, that's really good. There was one thing on Widow. Was there a thing on Widow? Your Widow, like, because your Widow play I didn't really see enough of to actually say anything about. And because of like how mechanical it is of a hero, like it's difficult to really screw up the positioning. Like your positioning was also fairly decent. I don't think there was much to say on Widow. Maybe tunnel visioning the 1v1. Make sure you don't do that. But at the end there, I did see that you were like trying to go for people while hiding from the Widow, which is what you want to do more. I think that's about it I have for you. That's about all I have for you. So that's it. I hope the advice resonated with you. So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next VOD review. Goodbye.